My students have always been my best teachers. I love brain science and I love seeing grades go up, but the thing I get the most excited about is something that doesn't always show up in test scores: the real life changes that make a student or a family's life better. Welcome to the LD Expert Podcast, your place for answers and solutions for dyslexia and learning differences. What we do at Stowell Learning Centers is vastly different than tutoring or special help at school. But if you're not entrenched in it every day, it's hard to get a picture of what it looks like. Today, we're talking to one of our former students about her journey with auditory training and how that changed her life. I'm your host, Jill Stowell, founder and executive director of Stowell Learning Centers and author of Take the Stone Out of the Shoe, a must-have guide to understanding, supporting, and correcting dyslexia, learning, and attention challenges. I'm so excited to welcome Adalyn Smith back to the LD Expert Podcast. I met Adalyn when she was in high school and reached out to me to be a guest on her IGTV channel. We had a fantastic conversation about auditory processing disorder, and I was so impressed with her. So in May 2021, Adalyn was my guest on the LD Expert live broadcast, where we talked about what it's like to live with an auditory processing disorder. At that time, Adalyn didn't know that there were things that you could do to improve auditory processing. But since then, she's gone through a program of auditory stimulation and training at Stowell Learning Center. And I always said I was going to have her back to talk about it, so here we are. Adalyn is now a college freshman who continues to actively share information and support for teens and others with auditory processing disorder, or APD. Welcome, Adalyn.
Thank you so much. It's amazing to be here. I'm honored to be here, and I love talking about all things auditory with the Stowell Center. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you, guys.
Well, I love having you be a part of this conversation because you give us a perspective that only someone who has actually lived with APD can share. So thank you for being so open and transparent and just for having a heart to help other people who are dealing with this as well.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. Sometimes it's hard to be transparent and very vulnerable, but that's the only way that you learn, and that's the only way that parents can get help sometimes. So I do what I can. So
fantastic. So I want to talk a little bit about what it was like for you before doing auditory training, just so that we can really get some good perspective here. So you went through most of your schooling dealing with APD, and what was that like for you?
There was a lot of emotions that come with that. I think the first one, there was just constant exhaustion. Actually, a few days ago, I was writing up a post, and it was about exhaustion, because that's the first word that comes to mind. Exhaustion comes from anxiety and lip reading and constantly trying to follow in any conversation, whether it's with a teacher or a professor or in any group setting. It's very, very difficult. I remember countless times when I just stopped trying and I just stopped listening because I didn't care anymore. Because if I, like, the harder I tried, the worse it got, and I just didn't understand. And so I stopped trying and I stopped caring, because of the exhaustion and because of the anxiety, because I never knew it was going to happen. That's what I mostly remember about high school. Mm-hmm. But then I did the training, and it was so much better.
And I really want to talk about that. But what you said is so important. A lot of times when students are struggling for whatever reason, mm-hmm. it looks like they don't care or they're not
Right.
trying. And just everybody listening, if you can kind of put yourself in a situation that you've been in before where you just simply don't get it. And so eventually you're just trying and trying and trying and you don't get it. And eventually you give up and you're like, I'm not doing this. I don't care anymore. Which might not actually be true, but you probably do care. But the thing is, it's very hard to see an auditory processing problem. It's very hard to see that someone is struggling to get the information clearly and completely, or to see how hard you're having to concentrate and focus and how much mental energy goes into that. And so, truly, when you it is exhausting, and eventually the brain just cannot continue to pay attention to something that doesn't make any sense.
It's a very hidden disability trial, whatever you want to call it. But it's a feeling of being very antisocial, but also of like it's kind of a weird out of body experience because you're trying so hard to be in the moment, but at the exact same time, it's like if I just zone out, I zone out, and it's fine because I'm not going to get it anyways. So what's the point?
And it's a little bit of a relief. I mean,
Yes,
we have our brain, eventually we need little mental breaks. And so that
yes,
zoning out is natural for us when we're overloaded.
right.
Yeah. And
Definitely.
that's interesting that you said it's kind of like being antisocial, because I see you as a quite a social person. I mean, it's really fun to engage with you,
Mm-hmm.
but when you're lost in conversation,
It's a totally different look. Like friends and family know me as this fun, extroverted girl, but when I have too much auditory input, I am so introverted and I get so quiet and I just don't talk to anybody because I'm exhausted.
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
not fun.
wow.
Yeah.
So going through school, did you feel like APD impacted your self-esteem and your confidence?
Definitely. There was a time in my life, I think it was junior year, it was right when COVID hit. Well, actually, a little bit after when COVID hit. And I started comparing myself to everyone because they could do so much. They could do piano lessons and soccer and have lots of family things and lots of friend things going on, but I can only handle 1 or 2 events in a day. And I thought that was bad and that was dumb and I should feel dumb and slow and stupid because of that, because I couldn't keep up. But in our reality, that's not how it is. It just is the way that you work, and that's fine.
Right. And it takes so much more mental energy to really stick with it in class or in conversation. And that really, we're talking about APD, but actually parents listening, teachers listening, that actually applies to dyslexia and ADHD and all kinds of other things where the brain is processing information differently. And so it takes more mental energy, and then you're exhausted. And it's just hard to do many things, when you're out of gas.
Yeah, exactly. It's a
Yeah.
great way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember when you were on LD Expert Live, you talked a little bit about what it was like for you, like as a teenager wanting to go, to a party or a gathering of friends.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what was that like for you?
Before the training,
Hmm.
it was exciting to go to the event, but also in the back of my head, I knew I was going to come away exhausted, and nobody else has to deal with that feeling in the back of their head as being a second thought. It's always I'm going to go have a good time. I'm going to go live it up. It's going to be great. I'm going to come home and then I'm going to get a great night's rest. But for me, I'm going to go and I'm going to try to participate as much as I can. I'm going to fall behind a lot. I'm not going to talk a lot. I'm just going to stand there, do my thing. Hopefully I'm going to look like I'm having a good time. Like, I don't know. Like, do I just have like this awkward blank stare? Probably. I probably do, but it's fine. But I just go and I give my best. And then if I have to leave halfway through the event, I leave, and that's fine because I am too exhausted to keep going. And then, yeah.
And that is something I just love about you, is that you are able to say to yourself, I do my best. And if I need to leave, I leave. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
And that didn't come very easily, actually.
Right.
It's almost, I almost felt guilty leaving because they planned this whole event and they did all this work and they were very, very excited about it. And then I leave halfway through it and I'm like, I tried, I really did, but I just can't get through it. It's exhausting. And it takes a minute to get there. It doesn't just happen overnight.
Yeah, that is really, really true. But I think it's encouraging. It's something, as parents and teachers, we just really want to help our kids, one, understand themselves and listen to them, because they're going to teach us a lot. I mean, I really meant it when I said my students are my best teachers. That's where I've learned the most. So it kind of goes both ways. As parents and teachers, we need to be listening and learning also, but then encouraging our students, our kids, to say things like that to them, verbally about themselves. I'm doing the best that I can. And what I'm doing is okay. This is
it's enough. And it will be just fine. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. So you did both auditory and processing skills training remotely through Stowell Learning Center. I didn't even get to meet you personally in person until after you had finished the training. But what is different for you now since doing the training?
I would say my confidence levels are so much higher than they used to be. When you get diagnosed with a disorder or auditory processing issues or any learning or attention challenge, in society, you're automatically placed into a stigma of you're dumb, stupid, and slow, and that's all you're ever going to be. And nothing's going to change, which is absolutely not true. And it can absolutely change. You can change that mindset if you work on that. And it's still a problem for me, but I'm also still working on that. I think a lot of the things that my trainer taught me was you know more than you think you do, and you can actually do what you think you can't do. You just have to walk through the steps, and it's in your brain. You just have to pick at it a little bit, and you'll get there. Which definitely helps boost my confidence a lot, because it got me out of the mindset of I'm actually not dumb or stupid or slow. I just work differently, and that's fine. I just have to learn what those ways are for me first before I look at somebody else and think, why can't I do what you're doing right now? So,
it just breaks my heart to hear you say, but I know that it's true that, when you struggle especially in school, because kids spend so much time in school, but when you struggle in school, you have a learning disability of some sort or learning difference, that you and many people around you kind of automatically go to, oh, well, they're just not as smart, they're slow. And you are absolutely right. I mean, the truth is that is not true at all. In fact, uh, most of our students, and we have a lot of students, and most of our students, if you were to compare them, you know, uh, intellectually with other people in their class, they would be way on the upper end. So intelligence really has nothing to do with it.
no, it doesn't.
But it's, a lack of understanding, out there, which is part of what we're trying to do here.
And
is
it's the main thing that gets attacked is the first thing that comes up. It's, oh, I'm not smart just because I'm not doing good on a standardized test, which has nothing to do with it. And I could talk about that for hours, but we don't have time for that.
Yeah. So, college is a whole other step. Things go faster. The lectures are much more dense. The expectations are higher, so many classes. But we haven't even really talked about this at all, but having gone through the auditory training, how do you think that college is different for you than it would have been?
That's a great question. I think it's so much less stressful because I learned how to take better notes. I learned how to listen for keywords better. I learned how to listen for professors' tones changing in lectures, which has been huge. I learned what information was more important than other information, which I didn't understand how to do before. I learned how to have confidence in not only the room, like a professor's room, but also in like a group setting with group projects and group conversations going on. I learned so many things. It was wild.
It's interesting as I listen to you talk because some of the things that you're describing, I mean, are skills, definitely, but also just being able to function in a room where you have different groups working. That shows a huge increase in your auditory system's ability to block information and to get information more clearly and accurately. And that's something that it's hard to label the skill of it, but that's really the basis of the auditory training is stimulating that system in the brain to actually get the information more easily. So I'm happy to hear how you're describing it, because I can tell that, that is, has provided a better foundation for you. So
yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about the training from a student standpoint. What was the training like?
It was like so many things. There were so many things that were happening all the time, but I loved it. Some sessions were hard, some sessions were easier. That's just how it goes with any trainings. I was surprised at how much reading we did, but it helped me so much. There were exercises where we would read a paragraph from a passage, and then we would summarize it in one sentence or find the main points. And then we would do the same for like the next 5, and then I would go through the story and tell her again of exactly what happened with my key points. And at the end, I was actually able to do that, which I couldn't do that before. And that was like, whoa, I just did that. Like, I could not have done that 9 months ago. And we just like drilled it into my brain, and it was like key points, summarize, paraphrase. Like, I have it in my brain. I just have to slow down and just do it.
And have strategies for organizing and holding the information. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I remember you saying when we talked, when we actually personally met, saying the training was hard sometimes.
Yeah, it wasn't easy, but it was definitely worth it.
Yeah.
For sure.
So one of the things that's really hard for families is just fitting in one more thing. And, you were a part of a busy family and a senior in high school. How did you manage to fit it in?
That's a great question. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, I don't know how I did that. But I think it just comes back to time management and putting important things at the center, because a lot of times when a child is younger, they're learning a lot more at a faster rate, and it sticks with them for their life. And so you have to decide what they're going to learn and what's going to stick with them throughout their elementary and middle school years. That's what I would say.
And you know, one of the things with this kind of learning skills, cognitive training is you've got to be consistent. You've got to work kind of intensively. So the session really, really pushed you.
Yeah.
But you've also got to be consistent. And that was one of the things that I really, really appreciated about you. I mean, you did this as a student. I mean, we really were working with you more than with your parents to do this. And you were very, very consistent with it. And I like what you said about, you know, you have to decide what's going to be important, what's going to make the most difference right now.
And I think if a parent can see that their child is struggling in school and that they come home exhausted and frustrated and it's mental breakdown after mental breakdown and it's just this constant battle, I think that's a sign that some type of auditory training should be taken or some help should be given to the child, because that will help so much in the coming years with more academic work.
That's a really, really great point, because those breakdowns can look like really annoying, irritating behavior.
Right.
And that is, we just always have to realize that if that behavior is showing up, there's a reason for it. And it's not because you have a bad kid.
No, they're a great kid.
They're frustrated or they're doing their best and it's just not working out. So thank you.
Right.
That's a great point. So what would you talked a lot about TLP, the listening program on Instagram. Are you still, which is a part of the auditory training, a really critical part. Are you still doing TLP?
Yeah, I'm not doing it as much just because college is so intensive. I try to do it about once per day. And normally I'll do it when I wake up, just because it gets your auditory systems ready for the day and it kind of gets your mind refreshed and ready to go. Or you could do it at night, and that kind of helps your auditory systems like breathe and say, I'm okay. Like, I just took in so much information and now I have to process everything and go to bed and then start it all over again. So I'm still doing about once a day, but
great. It's a huge support for the system in so many ways. Yeah,
definitely.
So as you think about the training that you did, the processing skills and auditory training, what was the hardest part?
Oh, that's a great question. I think there were different exercises that we did that were more difficult than others. And I think one of those was the mind benders. Those were so difficult. Even just thinking about that, I was like, wow, that was really hard. Wow. It's basically just like 4 or 8 different items, and then you have to match them together based on clues. But you can't use paper. You can only use your mind to work through those, and it's just difficult.
Yeah, and those, we really use those to start to integrate all different things, reasoning and memory and visualizing and sequencing. There are lots and lots of skills in there. So this is a really hard question, but is there anything that stands out to you from the training that you feel like made the biggest change for you?
I think there's a lot of things. Like I said earlier, my confidence level shot up. I think the biggest thing was my ability to take a project or anything academic and think about it in smaller terms and not get so stressed about it. Because before, when I had any type of project, I would just break down or I would freeze, where I would be so stiff the whole day because I was so stressed about this math worksheet or about the science project. But training taught me to put it in smaller parts and then slowly work through it, instead of looking at this huge project and saying, how am I supposed to do all of this in a week? When really you only have to do 10 to 15 minutes per day, which I thought was very cool. I was like, wow, this is actually possible. Look out. Really nice to know.
It really is, and that's a lifelong thing, I'll tell you,
Yes,
because
yes.
it's really easy to get overwhelmed with so
Mm-hmm.
much, but as soon as we break it down,
Mm-hmm.
whew, we can breathe a little bit.
Yeah, it's like, oh, deep breaths, deep breaths. Yeah, for sure.
So, for students going through auditory training, what would you say to them? Maybe to encourage them?
I would say, in technical terms, the first month is very, very difficult. You're getting into this very intensive routine, and there's lots of things going on. There's the listening program, and there's the other very intensive training. But then once you get more into it, it's a lot better and it's a lot easier. I would also say expect to have really, really hard days. After some of my trainings, I just cried for like 20 minutes. I was like, this is so hard and it's exhausting, but it was so worth it. And it was definitely life-changing as well. But yeah, expect to be tired because it's about an hour and a half session, for like 3 times a week or 2 to 3 times a week. But afterwards you think like, wow, I just did that, and I just like did all the exercises, and yes, my brain is mush and it's exhausted, but also it grew so much. And now I know how to do so many more things, and I learned so many more skills. Also, I kept like a little journal throughout my listening papers of all the little successes I had during school, during different events, during conversations I had. And even like looking back through those, I was like, I remember that day when I finally got that concept in school. Or I remember when the TLP helped me so much today because of this exhausting thing in school. So do the listening program. It's the best thing ever. It's amazing. And also, every little bit of training is worth it. Yes, the sessions seem long and tiring, but in the end, you look back and you think, holy cow, I just did 9 months to a year of training. Like that's incredible. And that was really, really hard work, but you did it. And you did every single session of that. And it was so, so worth it. So I would say push through and just keep working on it no matter what.
Yep. And just show up and do it. Man, you
Yeah.
said so much in there, Adalyn. Whenever you start something new, change is hard, and learning new things, it's always a challenge. And then gradually, those neuro connections get made and things get easier. But you're right. In a training like this, if we're not pushing you, then you're not going to learn as much. You're not really going to make those neural changes. And so you are going to have some really days that feel great, and then others when you're really getting pushed that feel hard. And I love that you journaled, because then you really can you can appreciate yourself for
Exactly.
what you've done, and that's
Yeah.
so encouraging.
And you have to have the good and bad days where you stretch your mind and where you just practice to have that good balance of getting everything together in one.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Adalyn, I appreciate you so much. I appreciate your passion for helping others understand and navigate APD.
Mm-hmm.
You're just so real and authentic, and I know that has helped so many other teens and their parents and teachers. So, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me at Advocate for APD. It's on Instagram. I'm currently trying to get a Facebook page up as well. Or you can email me at advocateforapd@gmail.com.
And that is the number 4, right?
Yes,
Advocate.
thank you. Mm-hmm. Yep, on both
Great.
accounts. Yeah.
Great. Well, Adalyn, thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Of
I
course.
think auditory processing challenges are one of the most invisible learning challenges. So
Absolutely.
getting your perspective from the inside is incredibly helpful.
I'm glad I could help in whatever way.
Thank you.
Of course.
Next week, we will be talking with Dr. Lindsay Sterling, founder of the Sterling Institute for Autism. When your child or teen is struggling, it's hard to know what to do and where to turn, and Dr. Sterling really gets that. Be sure to tune in for our conversation about supporting your neurodiverse or autistic youth when life gets complicated. At Stowell Learning Centers, we help children and adults eliminate struggles associated with dyslexia, auditory processing disorder, and learning differences. We want to make this journey easier for you. Connect with us on social media and on our website, stowellcenter.com, for information and free resources. If you found this episode valuable, please like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our new episodes. The struggles associated with dyslexia and learning differences can be eliminated. Please help us get the word out by leaving a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. Let's change the narrative together.